So in this last portion of the exercise, we're going to complete the mapping of the values for the Zigurat property sets. So in order to do that, let's go back to our options in Property Manager. And let's create the last property here, which is going to be the type ID. Let's click on OK. And as we did before, let's add the same classes by using the eyedropper and then the syringe, such that the type ID is applied to the same beam, columns, walls, slabs, and walls. Now, this type ID will be then connected to another type of value that already exists in ArchiCAD. So we don't need to connect that. We don't need to type that manually. We don't need to connect it necessarily to project info, which is a single value, but we can bring in parameters from within the file. Like in the case of the type ID, that will be an expression or a formula that will bring in the building material or composite name or profile name. So let's type that in by calling it building material, like so. So let's bring in that. And I'm going to click on OK. Let's create another expression. And this one will bring the composite. And click on OK. And let's add the complex profile. And click on OK. And now click on OK. Then let's go back to the IFC translator. And let's make sure we map those values into walls, slabs, and beams. So let's do that quickly. Type ID, new rule, add content. And look for the Zigurat group type ID. So that's now mapping the program block with the block, the classification with the classification value, and the type ID with the type ID ArchiCAD property. Let's go ahead and do the same for the slabs. And add content. And let's bring the classification, program block. That'll be called block. And for the type ID, same type ID, like so. So I'll repeat 2 more times just to get columns and beams in the same way. Okay, so from the top, IFC beams, I've got the classifications mapped, program block mapped, type ID mapped. Same thing for columns, slabs, and walls. Now let's double check just by clicking on OK. And let's go back to the IFC property walls. That's going to be our schedule to double check the values. Do a right click and into the scheme settings. And now let's add more classifications to this so that it's not just walls that we're checking. So let's go for walls. Let's add a criteria and then add 3 more of this. Let's move them up so we can move the hot link down. And then the series of criteria requirements will need to go wall or, let's say, column, or beam, or a slab. Then at the end, and hot link is not any of the hot links. Now let's add more of the properties. So let's check for the ones on the walls. We'll need to add the classification. Click on OK. Now we could rename to walls, slabs, columns, beams. And now we should be able to double click on that and then review the list. Notice that in this particular case, the schedule has included the segments too. And we can avoid that simply by adding an extra criteria here. And let's look for element type. And let's make sure that the element type is not. And then let's choose more. And let's say no column segments. Let's add another one of those. Actually, we'll need, I believe, 3 more. And is not, then you go for more. It's also not a beam segment. And let's remove the last one. Probably with this, we have enough. And click on OK. And once you have this schedule right in front of you, let's check, let's adjust this to fit to the width. And let's check the values. If you find some of the values to be missing, like in the case of this test class, PP1 and PP02 wall types, they might be being typed in manually, which was the first portion of our exercise. That's why it's good to always have a schedule that you can go and check for. If that is the case, you just have to select merge items and then check whenever there's a missing value, like in the case of PP1, go and select those elements in 3D. Go for the settings, so Control T or simply click this button. And then down in classifications and properties, go to Manage IFC Properties, such that you can reset the values to be read directly from the mapping. So click on that, and now the element will be mapped. Click back on OK, and OK, and back to schedule, and you should have been able to fix that issue. Like so. So now this has the value that it should have inherited. Let me fix the classifications. There you go. And we must have all the values connected right there. Repeat for those elements that do not have a value, and then you'll get a full list with the correct values in your file.